Now, President Trump has said that the Turkish assault on Kurdish forces in northern Syria has nothing to do with the United States. His abrupt decision to pull out US troops last week has led to Russian and Syrian government forces advancing into positions that they once held. Mr. Trump has faced intense criticism at home and abroad after Turkey invaded to create what it claims is a safe zone on the Syrian side of the border. Our international correspondent Orla Guerin reports from Turkey's border with Syria.
Urban warfare in northern Syria. Fighters backed by Turkey still battling for control of the border town of Ras Al Ain. They're facing fierce resistance from the Kurds, women fighting alongside men. It's rare to get a glimpse of this side of the battle. But 1 week into Turkey's invasion, President Erdogan has taken a swathe of territory from the Kurds and says he won't stop until he completes his so-called safe zone.
Barış Pınarı Harekatı.
Operation Peace Spring will last until we reach a depth of 30 to 35 kilometres, from Manbij to the Iraqi border. There is no doubt or hesitation about this.
And here's an image that shows the new order in the strategic town of Manbij, flying the flag for President Putin. His forces had a clear run here after America's hasty retreat. Moscow eagerly filling the power vacuum. The Russians who back President Assad are patrolling between the Syrians and the Turks, keeping them apart and offering to mediate. As President Erdogan fights on, the fallout is spreading. American foreign policy in the Middle East is certainly a casualty. Well, Turkish forces are continuing to pound targets across the border in Syria, and the battlefield there has changed rapidly. American forces have surrendered much of their leverage. The Russians have increased theirs. For President Assad, it's a win. And for those opposing him in Syria's long war, it's a bitter pill to swallow. And here's another one. US forces pulling out of northern Syria today, most now gone from the region. The Kurds see this as a massive betrayal. For Donald Trump, they already sound like history.
Our soldiers are not in harm's way, as they shouldn't be, as two countries fight over land. That has nothing to do with us. And the Kurds are much safer right now, but the Kurds know how to fight. And as I said, they're not angels. They're not angels.
Those staunch US allies, dismissed so casually, were burying more dead today. Here, 2 fighters and a local journalist. But there are reports that around 70 civilians have been killed since the invasion began. Turkey's safe zone is becoming a burial ground. Orla Guerin, BBC News, on the Turkey-Syria border.
Well, despite President Trump's public stance there, his Vice President Mike Pence and Secretary of State Mike Pompeo are due to arrive in Turkey tomorrow to talk to the Erdogan government about possibly calling a ceasefire. In a moment, we'll be talking to our Middle East editor, Jeremy Bowen, who's in the Turkish capital, Ankara. But first, let's join our North America editor, John Sopel, in Washington. And John, what do we know now about the kind of pressure, if any, that President Trump has been putting on the Turkish government?
Well, I think he has been applying pressure, but he's also been kind of undercutting the position of Mike Pence for this visit to Ankara tomorrow by saying, look, we don't have a dog in the fight. This is between Turkey and Syria. It's nothing to do with us. How is America going to call for an immediate ceasefire if that is their position? But a letter has been released, which was sent last week to President Erdogan, in which he says, you know, don't be responsible for slaughtering thousands of people. I don't want to be responsible for destroying the Turkish economy. And the letter ends, don't be a tough guy, don't be a fool, I'll call you later. So he obviously put some pressure on, but to no avail. There's also been a meeting taking place at the White House this evening with senior Democrats and Republicans over the issue of Turkey, and the Democrats walked out because they said it was a diatribe and not a dialogue, and in which the President called the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, a third-rate politician. You do sense that Donald Trump is feeling the pressure as well?
John, many thanks. John Sopel there in Washington. Let's go live to Ankara and talk to Jeremy Bowen, our Middle East editor. Well, with this deputation on the way, Jeremy, and in the context of President Trump's remarks, what do you think the prospects are tomorrow for these talks?
I think they're going to be difficult. It's hard to see where the common ground is. You've been hearing from John about the threats that Trump has made to destroy the Turkish economy. But those threats are being made to President Erdogan, who is a proud man for whom prestige matters a great deal, who has told his people that he is fighting an absolutely justified war in Syria against terrorists who threaten their lives, and a lot of Turks agree with him. So is he now going to say, no, actually I've changed my mind? I don't think so. So is there some kind of an exit lane for the Turks? Well, possibly from the Russians. Could the Russians offer some sort of guarantee? Now, Mr. Erdogan is due to go and see the Russian president, Mr. Putin, in the next few days, next week. The question is whether that meeting is more important than the one that he's having with his NATO allies who are coming over from the United States, because the Russians are more and more becoming the most influential foreign power in the Middle East. They are the people who brokered that deal between the Syrian state and the Kurds. Could Mr. Putin think that he might become not just the puppet master of what's going on, but also a potential peacemaker? We'll see.
Jeremy, once again, thank you. Jeremy Bowen, our Middle East editor in Ankara, and John Sopel in Washington.